Hey everyone, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today it's going to be the Japanese version of Castlevania III for the 8-bit Nintendo, also known as Akumajo Densetsu for the Famicom. We're actually playing this on the Retro USB AVS, which I got in the mail recently and I've done several videos on already. This basically takes old NES and Famicom games and allows you to play them on a modern HD set through glorious 720p. I know 720p, the sound of that doesn't really sound that glorious, but for NES games, it is quite glorious, trust me, especially when it's de-interlaced like it's doing right now. So this video is actually going to serve to sort of kill two birds with one stone. First off, it's October 2016, and well, at least as of recording this, I know I'm going to seriously date this video by mentioning the actual date, but you know, for those of you guys watching this years down the road. But yeah, I actually already did a Let's Play of the original Castlevania III many years ago. And I've wanted to do a Let's Play of the Japanese version for quite some time, but just didn't have a means to play it until now. Also, I've always wanted to do a side-by-side long play, or a dual play, of the North American release of this game, as well as the Japanese release of this game. So, for October 2016, aside from doing a full Let's Play of the Japanese version, later this month I'm also going to upload a dual play of the Japanese version compared with the North American version. So I haven't done a dual play video in quite some time. I think Battletoads was my previous one. So definitely stay tuned for that. And that's also kind of why I'm letting this intro roll out. It's so I can have the full intro for the dual play later this month. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. And much like my Castlevania III Let's Play from a couple of years ago, we are going to play the Sypho route. Hey, it fits perfectly. We're gonna play the Sypho route because that's the easiest for me. It's sort of like the guaranteed way for me to get through the game. Although what's really interesting about the Japanese version is that there's power-up changes in certain areas. So power-ups aren't in the exact same spot throughout the entire game, and so this is gonna make this run a little bit interesting. I've only completed the Japanese version once since owning this, so we'll kind of see how this goes. One of the trying to get my headphone situation so it's actually comfortable, but I'm having a hard time with that. So yeah, power-ups are in different spots in this game, which can actually really change the dynamic of how you progress through levels in this game. And those of you guys that actually know how, you know, the power-ups are laid out in the original Castlevania 3, you'll kind of recognize exactly what the differences are. But I'll try to point them out as I progress through the game. From what I understand, a lot of this first level is very much the same. Like, I believe there's some holy water up top here. We're going to go ahead and actually just pick up for the first boss, because that'll definitely help us. What you're going to notice in this game is, I don't know if this is actually the case, but it feels like some enemies actually move slower in this version of the game. I don't know if it's just me, but it definitely seems like some projectiles are slower. And I guess I'm going to personally find out about that once I do my side-by-side long play after we do this Let's Play video. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take that original footage I recorded for Castlevania 3 many years ago, because that's old composite footage. It's not 60 frames a second. So what I'm going to do is, after I do this Let's Play, I'm going to do a full playthrough on my own, just recording the US Castlevania 3, and then I'm going to slap both of these side by side, do a little bit of chopping up, so the levels line up and so forth, just like I usually do. And then upload that as a dual play. No commentary on that. But I'm pretty sure the projectiles in the North American version are faster. So the hunchbacks are also like these little demon things now. So that's one of them. You're going to see two more here. And I want to try to not kill them so you can actually get a, you know, you can actually look at them. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's actually a little weird to me because, you know, I live in North America, the United States specifically, and so I grew up with Castlevania, right? The first Castlevania came out in North America when I was like 5 years old, so Castlevania is something that It's kind of been a part of my life for a very long time, actually, and so I've witnessed those hunchbacks like right from the very beginning, the hunchbacks in North America, and it's actually kind of weird seeing like these little crawly demon things that just go across the ground. I'm not sure which one I like more. I want to say the hunchback is what I like more, just because it's what I'm used to. But yeah. It's a little trick there with the holy water. Sometimes with the holy water, much like in the first Castlevania, you can use it on a platform like that, and the sprite is just big enough to go through the platform and hurt the enemy above it. Something else I wanted to do, since we've got a bunch of time here, the skeleton boss is just a little bit higher than this platform here. And what's really interesting about this version is in the North American version, you can actually duck on this platform and hit him in the head. You can't do that in the Japanese version. Your whip actually makes contact with it, but it just goes straight through the guy and it doesn't actually register as a hit. So that was actually a very noticeable change. And I don't know if there are too many other changes like that throughout the course of the game. But in the United States version, you can just duck on that platform and hit the boss. So generally speaking, the US version is a lot harder than this version, but in some small places, it's actually easier than this one. So again, we're going to take the Cypher route, so I'm just going to ignore the clock tower completely. The reason is just, that's just a whole extra level we don't even have to play. Maybe sometime down the road, I'll do some other Let's Plays of Castlevania III. And the Japanese version of Castlevania 3. So I can show you like a Grant playthrough, I can show you an a la carte playthrough, and so forth. The Grant playthrough in the Japanese version is especially interesting because in the Japanese version, he doesn't have a dagger, like a small little knife that he attacks enemies with. He has an actual throwing dagger as his main weapon. It uses no hearts. He's basically got an infinite projectile as his main weapon. So in the North American version, Grant had a knife, and he would literally just attack enemies. Like, the knife barely went past his sprite. It was a very small weapon, but very fast, mind you. It was useful. But in this version, nope. It's gone. He's got a permanent throwing dagger, which is really interesting, and he can even throw it when he's cleaned on the walls as well, which is really cool. So maybe we'll do a playthrough in the future of Grant. A la carte's not so interesting. I mean, it's basically the exact same thing as it is in the North American version of the game. Unfortunately, a la carte isn't any extra special in the Japanese one. But I did find it really interesting that Grant is quite different. So that's, for those of you guys that didn't know that, that's actually kind of one reason to own the Japanese version of the game. The biggest reason to own this version of the game is for the extra music. Like, not the extra music, it's the different sounding music. The Japanese Castlevania 3 has an extra sound chip inside of it, which helps produce some extra channels for the Famicom. Which gives the Famicom extra channels, sound channels to work with, which makes the combination of sounds much more beefier. You know, it gives them much more of a dynamic sound to the soundtrack, which is really awesome. Now, the North American Castlevania 3, I still think sounds awesome. I mean, it fits perfectly in that era of Nintendo Entertainment System games. You know, 1990 is when it came out in North America, I believe. Yeah, 90 sounds about right. I'm pretty sure it was 90, not 91. And I still like how the North American one sounds, but man, this Japanese one sounds great. It's really cool. I like both renditions of the soundtrack. I mean, you could basically say that the North American Castlevania 3 basically sounds more in line with Castlevania 1 and 2, which is cool. There's consistency. Whereas Castlevania 3 for the Japanese Famicom sounds quite different. But both soundtracks are great. They both basically feature the same compositions. There's just more detail to the Japanese tracks. The tracks sound beefier, thicker. It's really good stuff. It's really great hearing the Japanese music when you're used to the US version. Now, I don't know if it's really worth investing in the Japanese cart if you've already got the North American one. For one, myself personally, I actually prefer the harder difficulty of the North American one. I actually did not want to pick up that stopwatch, but whatever. Yeah, I actually prefer the harder difficulty of the North American one. It's actually really hard at first, but it's the kind of game where once you get the hang of it, you learn all the patterns, you can pretty much demolish it. It seems almost unfairly difficult. But again, once you get the hang of it, you can just tear right through that game. So the Japanese version, I think, is something that really hardcore fans of the franchise will want to own, but more casual Castlevania III fans probably won't care as much. Now, what's interesting about this guy is in the North American version, he typically runs at you. He does this, you know, club smash that he's doing right now as well. But he has a tendency of running a lot more often in the North American version. And in this version, the Japanese one, he's a lot more relaxed. And he'll just kind of like walk back and forth, and you can just bait him into doing his club smash. So this boss is actually a lot less annoying in the Japanese version. So in the North American version, what will typically happen is you'll hit him once, maybe twice, and then he'll start doing this charge-up run at you, and he'll just bolt straight for you. And, so there's a... It's... I guess the boss in the North American version, I don't want to say it's more methodical, there's more of a waiting game than the North American one. Like, you've got to get him prepped to dash at you, then you have to jump over him, run to the other side, hit him once or twice, and he'll start running at you again, and then jump over him, go to the other side of the screen. It's just rinse and repeat. So the battle is slower in the North American version. Perhaps more tense, because it just takes longer. Alright, so we're going to switch over to Sypha. What I want to do with Sypha is try to get a attack. The Flame Book is a really good one for her. Sypha is actually a chick. It was actually one of those things that... One of those, like, aha, I gotcha, like, moments in the game, where you basically beat the game, and you find out for the first time that it's a female. Which, for, you know, 1990 or so, you're just like, huh? Like, nobody really saw that back in the day. And I think in the North American version, when you first get Sypha, you don't know it's a female because it says, would you like to take him along with you? Like, you don't see Sypha's face. You don't assume that it's a chick. And so, you know, the big twist in the ending, if you play with Sypha as your partner, is you find out that she's actually female. Good old early video game era twists. Video games were still relatively new in the grand scheme of things at the time. I know it was 1990, you know, we had gone through like the Atari 2600 generation, you know, ColecoVision and television, the early computer phase, but video games were still in their infancy at that time in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it's been almost 30 years since this game came out, and that's a long time, actually, now that I think about it. That's a really long time. And of course, I'm dating this video even farther because, assuming YouTube's still around in 4 years, you know, it will actually be 30 years. Or longer. Which is kind of a funny way to look at it. I don't think this opens up yet. I didn't think so. Yeah, it's really crazy to think how far video games have come. Like, it doesn't even feel like it's been that long for me, because again, like I said, I grew up with the Castlevania series, and I grew up with the Nintendo Entertainment System in particular. That was like my first major system. I mean, I had an Atari 2600, and I loved it, but that was a very small portion of my life compared to the NES and onward. But having been through, you know, these games coming out, like, as they were brand new, you know, experiencing Castlevania III when it was a brand new release, it just doesn't feel like it's been 30 years, you know? Like, I'm still playing them today, too. It's just like, it's just... I don't know. I should feel like an old man, but like I don't feel like an old man. In regards to like some of these old video games like Castlevania III or anything from the NES era. Anything from the Genesis era even. Oh yeah, there's no orb on that boss. So a couple of times throughout the course of the game, there are some mini-bosses. And this is one of them. So you basically fight Medusa. Castlevania III, again, it was still a relatively new thing at the time. I mean, it was only the third game of the franchise, not counting, say, like the arcade version or the really obscure MSX Vampire Killer. In terms of the core franchise, you know, it was the third game in the series. And it was really only the second game in the core series that was linear. You had the first Castlevania, and then you had Castlevania 3. So it was like, it was still kind of fresh at the time when this came out. And I was going to say something else. I completely forgot what I was going to say. That's what happens when I talk and play at the same time. God damn, what was I going to say? Well, that's a brain fart. Jeez. A little embarrassing. What was I going to say? I have no idea. I'm literally trying to think of what I was going to say, and I can't remember. I started that little rant, or tangent, because I was going to take it somewhere, and I don't know where I was going to take it now. I just... Yeah, let's talk about something else. Castlevania III, yeah! Or Akumajo Densetsu. So something I did want to note is, we're going to have to fight the ogre club guy again here, but not without fighting the mummies first. And the mummies are actually kind of interesting. Okay, so you can get hit by those. Oh, look at that. You can hit them in the head, but you couldn't hit the skull guy in the head in the beginning. So notice how the mummies are shooting these projectiles straight forward. They don't do that in the North American version. Their projectiles in the US release, they wave up and down. Very much like the mummies in the very first Castlevania. So it's really interesting how that happens. And what's interesting about this, oh, it's like it's more of a Cyclops, is the Cyclops in the North American version, he can walk through this platform. I'm pretty sure there's another set of blocks below this platform, and he can walk through it and hurt you. So you have to jump over his head. You can't just sit here. In the Japanese version, there's almost like there's an invisible wall here, and he can't go past it. So you can literally just sit here. So again, you know, there's a couple situations in this game where it's considerably easier than the North American version. But again, like on the skull boss, or the skeleton boss in the first level, it can be a little bit trickier, because on that boss, you can't just duck and hit him in the head, like you can in the North American version. Alright, we gotta deal with this tower. This tower was one of the worst levels in the North American version. But it's not as bad in this one, because the projectiles at certain points feel like they go considerably slower. So this part is good to try to just take your time and try to line up your whip attack with these flying guys. You want to make sure you don't get knocked back. You can just land on one of the staircases. As long as you're on a staircase, you won't get knocked back. But if you're on one of these flat platforms, you will get knocked back if you get hit. So if you think you're really going to get hit and you might get knocked off an edge, try to walk on the stairs and you won't get knocked off. Let's go ahead and use this. Try to take these guys out faster. So that pickup we just got is wall meats. If you're new to this series, it's very, very common for the Castlevania franchise. It started in the very first game of the series and sort of stuck with the series for... So we're going to go ahead and pick that up. As long as we can get through this, this will actually come in handy. Because the boss of this level... This is the Frankenstein level, right? I'm pretty sure it is. I think it is anyway. Oops. Oh, crap. That was really close. I wasn't expecting to get hit by that guy. So, and of course, the holy water is only going to come in handy if we don't die with it. Now, that's a different situation altogether, honestly. Because even though this is the Japanese version of Castlevania 3, it's still a challenging game. I mean, pretty much just about every Castlevania game out there is challenging to some degree or another. And it's going to be more challenging for certain players than others as well. You know, there's some people I've talked to that just have a really hard time with Castlevania Bloodlines for some reason, but then there's other players, including myself, that are just like, that game's a cakewalk, I beat it the first time I played it, or something like that, you know? So the difficulty, it's still going to give, especially more casual players that haven't been playing this series for a very long time, it's going to give them more trouble as well. Now, I'm sort of just taking my time here, trying to get all the hearts I can. Since we are in a Let's Play, I like to try to do, you know, play for survival a little more often. This is going to be a little embarrassing when it comes to doing my dual play of this and the North American version, because I'm probably just going to plow right through the North American version, while as this footage I'm going to use is going to also be used in my dual play. So it's going to show me kind of like goofing off a little bit. Yeah, you can see these projectiles are fairly slow, and I am pretty sure they're considerably faster in the North American version. You have to be really careful in this section. Sometimes they flash, like that guy flashed but didn't even fire. And it might be related to how many projectiles are on the screen, come to think of it. I think that might be what's going on. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on. And I don't think that... I don't know if that happens in the North American version. Yeah, this is the Frankenstein level. Okay, I thought it was. I don't know why my mind is blanking out. It's probably just because it's been a long day for me. I did work tonight. I worked 10 hours. And so, oh, I didn't want to get that. God, man. Yeah, it's been a while for me. I did work 10 hours, and so, you know, we're probably at the 12+ hour point in my day. Unfortunately, I don't have the flame, so we're gonna have to use Trevor. Trevor is the main character in the game, Trevor Belmont. And go ahead and grab that meat. So the plan was to get to have the holy water here, which would just help a lot, honestly. The holy water, just like in the first Castlevania, is really, really powerful. It just does rapid damage to enemies. And really, this was one of the last Castlevanias to really do that. Castlevanias 1 and 3 had really badass holy water that would just like tear through enemies. Unfortunately, from part 4 and on, that wasn't really the case. Part 4's holy water could actually still be quite useful, but it's just the cross in that game was just so good that you never really needed to even think about the holy water in that version of the game. Whereas, like, don't get me wrong, the cross is amazing in Castlevania 1 and 3, but it's really amazing when you get it powered up to ×3 and so forth. In Castlevania 4, the cross is just amazing no matter what. Nope, holy water. I actually don't really want the holy water right now, because there's going to be a lot of, you know, aerial enemies like these birds and whatnot. I'd rather try to... Oh, There was an axe. Not the axe, the dagger. The dagger actually would have been the book, I believe, for Sypha. And the book is the most powerful weapon for Sypha. It's not long range, but it does just a ton of damage. And it's my preferred weapon to use with Sypha, if possible. And the axe probably would have been Sypha's freeze weapon, I believe. Which I should probably try to equip. But I just keep playing as Trevor, so it's kind of like, eh. So the power-up drops that appear, they're only going to appear as the appropriate compatible power-up for the character you currently have. So since I'm using Trevor, it's going to be, you know, the axe, the cross, the throwing dagger, things like that. Dead. I saw that coming. I was trying to actually, I was trying to hit that axe, but I failed to duck and attack. Oh, that is... Huh, interesting. So the axe is the flame in this one. I think it's... I am pretty sure in the North American one, the dagger is the flame. So that's actually really interesting. Let's go ahead and switch back to Trevor. Actually, probably not a good idea. I need more hearts. Which I need a lot more hearts. To get my Morning Star. So, getting your whip power-ups with Trevor is actually dependent on how many hearts you have. And that's something that maybe not a lot of people know about the old Castlevania games. When I was a kid, I always thought it was just like, oh, your second or third candle, that'll get you your heart, or, sorry, your next whip upgrade. Man, I can't talk today. But no, it's actually dependent on hearts. So it's like 5 or 6 hearts or something like that will give you your first upgrade, which is what I have right here. If this was like Castlevania II, this would probably be considered the Chain Whip. I'm not sure exactly what it's called in this one. But your full maxed out whip, your full length whip is called the Morning Star. There's some more wall meat. Now we're actually getting close to the boss again. We're not that far away, honestly. And this boss is actually really interesting because they did change up this boss for the North American release just a little bit. And I'll sort of explain what I mean once we get to the boss. And I think it actually makes this boss harder in this version. So now, yeah, it looks like 9 hearts will give us our power-up. And we're going to switch over to Sypha because, like I said, she's really powerful. So, first off, the head on this boss is different. Second, his projectiles actually go at an angle now. Whereas in the North American version, he literally just shoots straight ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and just tank, basically. Switch back over to Trevor, just so I have longer range, and I've got an axe as well. Got it. Alright, so that's 1 down. 2 down. They're both dead. So yeah, it's really interesting how they changed that for the North American version. I find it really interesting how they tone down certain things, but like I just find it interesting how they toned down certain things, but like left other things hard or made other things harder. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and try to do the Holy Water, because that'll definitely help us on the boss if we can get through this level without dying. Again, we have to do it without dying, so easier said than done. I'm gonna wait for these platforms to go through the bottom of the screen and come back down. That'll make my life a little bit easier. So you can use that little holy water trick I showed you on the very first level, where you can hit enemies from behind. Not behind, but from the bottom. From underneath. That would be the proper word to say. Now, it doesn't always work. Like, I think this boss, I tried it on, and it doesn't work. One of the things about Castlevania III is it does recycle bosses, unfortunately. And I think the reason it does that is because this game has multiple pathways, so you're not going to play the same path every time you play the game. Unless you're like me. And so it's to try to, I think, feed you, like, the same boss for each experience, in some cases. So, like, some paths are only going to have a boss featured in a very specific level. Like that, I guess you could call it like a Hydra boss or something we just fought. That's only on this route that we're currently on. But this upcoming boss that we have to fight, he's actually on another route as well. But not only do they reuse bosses in forms like that, where they've got some of the same bosses on multiple routes, so you can encounter that boss no matter what route you take, but this boss is also a culmination of previous bosses. So, the first one in particular is the Cyclops. We fought the Cyclops once by himself, we fought him a second time, paired with the mummies, and now we're going to fight the Cyclops again for a third time. And that's one of the hardest jumps in the game right there, mind you, by the way. You literally have to be on the very edge of the platform. They're kind of like standing on the edge of the platform like that. Notice how, like, I'm like 2/3 off the platform. Very typical stuff for like Castlevania and Mega Man. But that jump kind of requires you to be like perfect with your jump. It's a really tricky jump. I used to die there a lot when I was a kid. So yeah, that's one of the downsides of Castlevania 3 is they do regurgitate some of the bosses over again. Not just between routes, but also in the same route. So we're going to fight the Cyclops for the third time, and the Mummy for the second time, actually. So that's kind of a shame to me. I mean, it doesn't really bring the experience down that much, to be honest with you, because Castlevania 3 is just kind of so awesome as it is. But it is a objective observation, no doubt. So, and this is the boss. Yeah, the first one's the Mummy. And the second one's gonna be our Cyclops friend again. And we can literally just sit here. We don't even have to really do anything. Now, I'm pretty sure he can dash in this version. I mean, maybe he doesn't, but it feels like he should be able to, but we haven't seen him dash once yet on this playthrough. Alright, so this is our third boss on this boss rush. That's basically what it is. It's a boss rush. And he should hit that platform up there. But unfortunately, you see that holy water trick's no longer working. It works on the first boss, but not this guy. I'm gonna guess his hitbox actually probably starts a little bit higher, and that might be why it doesn't connect to him, but it connects to other bosses and enemies, as their hitboxes start lower. I think that's actually what's going on. Alright, so we're going to be going to a familiar level now, with some familiar music. And with a semi-familiar boss as well. Let's switch over to Sypha, make sure we've got a decent weapon. Oh, we've got the flame. Okay. I have no qualms with that. I'm going to go ahead and just stick with Trevor then. I prefer to play with the whip-wielding character just because it's... I don't know, that's just how I like to play these old Castlevanias. It's almost not Castlevania to me if I only play with a non-whip character. Don't get me wrong, I love the characters in this game. I think one of my favorite aspects of Castlevania 3 is the fact that it does have different characters. And it definitely gave the series and the franchise more character, no pun intended. And, but when I play, it's just a matter of, like, playstyle preference. I typically prefer Trevor. He's got a long reach. You know, guys like these, like, sort of pirate ghost zombie things are a hell of a lot harder with other characters. Well, not counting Grant. Well, not even... Actually, I guess they're really only a hell of a lot harder with Sypha, because Sypha just... You know... Sypha has the shortest reach in this game, whereas in the US version... oops. I wanted to actually kind of keep that holy water. Grant has the shortest distance in the US version. Alright, there's some wall meat. What we'll probably do is end up switching over to Sypha for the boss fight, because she's considerably more powerful. Now that I think about it, the holy water actually wouldn't have done me a whole lot of good on this boss anyway. And I think the last time I got to this boss with the holy water, I ended up dying, so... It actually would have been good to pick up that holy water with Sypha, though, because I believe the holy water for Sypha is actually one of her projectile attacks, or really the only projectile attack. Now that I think about it, I'm gonna go ahead and just keep the axe because I've got it on ×2. So we picked up the 2 icon, which allows me to throw the axe twice in one go. If you don't have that power up, you can only throw your weapon once until it goes off screen. Now, there's going to be a knight here. Trick is to just jump over him instead of trying to attack him. If you try to attack him, you might just slow down enough and not be able to get across this bridge. So the boss here is good old Death, and I'm just going to try to pummel him with axes and kind of see what happens. Now, Death actually has 2 forms. Here's the second form. Now, the axe is actually good right now because it actually hurts him. I think the cross doesn't hurt him in this form. I had a weapon the last time I got to this boss, and it was just making that, like, clanky sound, like it just wasn't making contact. There's a sound that the game makes when, like, an enemy is shielded and you're not doing damage, and that's the sound it makes if you use, I think, the cross on him. On his second form, I mean. That actually kind of makes sense when I think about it, because, like, in the Japanese games, it's an actual cross as the weapon. It's like a holy cross. In the US version, it's just called, like, the boomerang or something. I don't think it's actually a holy symbol in the early Castlevania games for the NES. Even Super Castlevania 4, I don't think it was called the cross. I think it was still referred to as the boomerang. So it actually kind of makes sense that the Holy Cross doesn't work on Death. I mean, it's Death. Death is Death. I never really thought about that until now. I'm like, maybe that was the intent. for the cross to not work on Death's second form. Getting deep with Castlevania III. Alright, so this level is a major pain, and to me it's easily one of the most difficult levels in the game. The biggest thing about this level is that you have to fight yourself. It's basically a doppelganger. But the AI for the doppelganger is kind of unfair. And the only way I'm really ever to beat this boss is just by gaming the system. And there's multiple ways you can game the system. One way is to constantly hit the select button to rotate to your other character. That takes time, but every time you do that, the doppelganger boss will have to do the same thing. And you can basically get the doppelganger in this like infinite loop. And it takes forever. So basically what you do is you switch characters, hit the boss. Switch characters again, hit the boss. Switch characters again, hit the boss. And it's literally just like one hit point every time you do that. And you're basically getting the boss into this endless cycle that he doesn't recover from. And so you're basically cheesing the boss. You're taking advantage of not really a bug in the game, but sort of like an oversight in the in the game. Developer oversight. So what I'll end up doing is if I ever do a Let's Play of, say, Castlevania 3 with, like, Grant or Alucard, I'm gonna have to use that trick, because I've never beaten the Doppelganger boss without cheesing the boss like that. So we're not gonna do it on this particular playthrough, because we're not gonna need to. We're gonna have Sypha, and I can use a different trick. So there's basically the two tricks I know. One is to use the change character trick. Another is what I did in my original Castlevania 3 Let's Play many years ago, and just use Sypha with a very specific weapon that will home into the Doppelganger boss. And but I can basically just sit off in a corner, and the Doppelganger is just kind of dumb, actually, and will just get caught and just won't know what to do. So you'll see exactly what I mean once we get to the boss. We're not that far away, actually. Now, I do have the axe. I do need to switch over to Sypha to get her weapon. I don't know if her weapon is... I think it's actually in the same spot as it is in the North American version. I guess we're going to find out. Now, I think there's some wall meat over here. Yep. Not that it matters. We're dead. Ah, what a horrible place to die. We're gonna do this whole section over again. I had a feeling something like that was gonna happen. Yeah, that was a really pathetic way to die. Those bats are pretty easily avoidable, and what I was trying to do is just get fancy with it and just keep moving, and that was dumb. Yeah, so what you guys just experienced is one reason to not die in a Castlevania game. Is having to do a section like this over again. Fortunately, it wasn't a very difficult section, because I did lose a lot of hearts in the process, which is a shame. Nice, try this again. Should we wait this time? Yeah, let's just wait. Alright, I'm going to switch over to Sypha, make sure I get the special weapon I need, otherwise we're probably not going to beat this boss. Well, I mean, I guess I could use the cheese method. The cheese method would work. Worst case scenario, we'll use the cheese method, but I'd rather use this easier method because it just goes by faster. It doesn't... Holy crap, he took... Wait, did I have full health? That was almost half my health bar. That doesn't happen in the North American version. Hold on, I'm gonna kill myself again, because we're gonna start at that checkpoint right there. I want to know how much damage these guys are doing. I think I got here and I didn't have full health. Alright, let's get a hit. Come on, bird. Smack me in the face. Okay, no, that's normal. I must not have had full health. Like, maybe I was missing 2 blocks or something. I wasn't paying attention. I saw, the enemy hit me. Wow, no, these guys do a ton of damage. So the birds are only doing like 4. Was it 4 hearts? Or was it 5? Maybe they're all doing 5 now, and that's it. It feels like the mermen are doing more damage than the birds are. I'm not too worried about the amount of lives I have as long as I get through this section without taking another hit. The reason is because we're gonna... we're gonna screw with the doppelganger anyway, so it's not gonna really matter that much. As long as I can get to the boss fight without taking damage, then we'll be fine. So we're almost there at the boss fight. Alright, so we're gonna jump immediately to the left. And just... Sypha is not gonna know what to do. Fake Sypha is not gonna know what to do. And that's it. Yeah, man, do they do more damage in this version of the game? They might. I'm gonna have to compare that to the USA version. That's really weird to me. I mean, maybe it does just as much damage in the USA version, but I don't remember it doing that much damage. Alright, so you know what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna play it safe with Sypha right now. Or not, never mind. I didn't want to pick up this weapon. I wanted to just use the homing projectiles for the rest of the stage. We're gonna end up getting the homing projectile weapon again at Dracula. Which in the North American version, you actually don't get near Dracula. It's actually kind of interesting how they actually give you the homing weapon right before Dracula. So, I guess in one way, the Dracula fight can be easier in this version. Especially if you die right before Dracula and you've got to do it again, and you've lost all your weapons or something like that. The flame is a super powerful weapon with Sypha. 2 hits on the bone pillars. But yeah, we're on the final level, guys. This actually isn't that bad in terms of length. We're actually halfway done with the level already, so... And we're gonna go ahead and get this, just because this will make life a little bit easier. If I'm not gonna play with Sypha for the rest, I might as well just play it safe. I'm sorry, if I'm not gonna play with Trevor. Man, I'm like super dyslexic today. Note to self, don't record a Let's Play after working a 10-hour shift. Yeah, so it seems like the damage It really varies depending on the enemy. I'm pretty sure in the United States version, every enemy just does the same amount of damage no matter what. I don't think there's, like, damage variations depending on the enemy. I could be wrong, but I am pretty sure it's just every enemy does, like, 4 or 5 hits of damage. And I'm pretty sure it's just 5 in the North American version. I don't think they go... Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just 5. Now, one of the cool things about the Japanese version of the game is once you get to this point, if you die, you start back at this part. In the North American version, you go all the way back to that last room I was in before the pendulums. So the room where the spiders were coming down, yeah, you've got to do that all over again in the North American version. Alright, so we just got the book. Not the book. Ah, dyslexic. We got the balls. I don't know what you call it exactly, but it's like that blue glowing sphere. And we're gonna grind out hearts for a little bit. Alright, we'll do it... yeah, we'll do it one more time. Alright, second form. There's 3 forms. This ball would make up its mind. So one of the problems with the homing balls in this game is they are kind of dumb. Like, really dumb. It seems like they have to actually hit the enemy before they're smart enough to fly off screen. So you can use them again. But if they don't hit anything, they just kind of go around in circles forever. Which can be really bad. So one difference on this final boss, this final form, is Dracula's beam is considerably smaller in this version of the game. For some reason, I can still get hit by it just as easily. But yeah, that's actually quite a difference. So in the North American version, it's at least 3 times as long as it is in this one. So we're going to do the whole grind again. I was being a little lazy with that fight, taking damage when I really shouldn't have. I mean, especially that last form, there was no reason for me to get hit twice. Alright, we're gonna stick with this and just kind of run with it and see how it works out for us. I'm trying to figure out if I want to use the cross with Trevor. We'll try the cross just this one time. Oh, this is bad. That's a horrible pattern to get stuck in with Trevor. Or anybody. Because you can't move. It's gonna land right on top of us, yep. Okay, so yeah, that's not working out too well, unfortunately. Alright, we're switching over to Sypha. So the cross doesn't seem to do very well in this boss at all. I would have rather have had the axe if I had to. And that's actually what I prefer to have in this when I get here. In the North American version, anyway. Because I can use the axe in the 3rd form. So in the North American version, what I would typically do is get here, have the flame with Sypha, tear through Dracula's first 2 forms like it was nothing, and then use the axe with Trevor. So I'd be on the ground, and just kill this boss from the ground, basically. So unfortunately, these homing balls are, like I said, they're kind of dumb, so you're at the mercy of them. It's like, I've used them once, they don't know what to do. It appears they're treating the platforms as, like, actual objects they can attack. Notice how the balls are just floating around the platforms? That's exactly what's happening, unfortunately. So they did it again. They're homing in on the platforms. Which makes them a little useless for this part. Come on, go away. Go away. Go away. Go away. Go away. Holy crap, man. Seriously. I'm gonna run out of time before I make another hit. Come on, dude. Seriously. Thank you. It's ridiculous, man. Thank you. That's, you know, as much of a pain as it is in the North American version to have to start a couple screens back when you die from here, it at least gives you the opportunity to pick up the axe, which makes, you know, Dracula's third form so much easier. So, like I said, I would use the book with Sypha on the first two forms, and then I would use the axe on the third form. Because, we would have beaten the boss much faster. And there you have it. The Japanese Castlevania III for the Famicom. And, you know, since it is a Famicom game, it is in Japanese. So, yeah. So Castlevania 3 is it's a great game. It's one of the hardest ones in the series, or at least one of the hardest ones to adapt to, because it's still really rigid, like the original Castlevania. It's not like you have, you know, diagonal or air whipping or anything like that. Like, you can't down thrust in the air or shoot up vertically like you could in Castlevania 4. Or even shoot diagonally like you could in Bloodlines. So it is a tough Castlevania game to get through. The Japanese version is definitely easier in certain ways, but it does feel like you take more damage in certain places. Like, even more than you do in the North American version. So a lot of people say the Japanese version is a lot easier. I don't think it's a lot easier. I think it's just, you know, the results are mixed. Some parts are a little bit easier. Some parts, I think, might even be a little bit harder due to the item placement differences. Oh, there's a demonstration of Grant. He's on the wall throwing his dagger. You can actually do that in this version. As far as I know, you can't do that in the North American version. You can climb on the walls in the US version, but you can't throw your daggers in the US version. Maybe if you have the dagger pickup, you can do it, and it uses a dagger. But in this version of the game, again, Grant just has permanent daggers you can throw infinitely, which is really cool. So, it's fun to try to play through the game with Grant because of that. It's just an interesting dynamic that you don't usually get permanent projectiles in a Castlevania game. Castlevania games are usually, you know, you've got a weapon, your weapon might have some reach, but that's it. It's, any projectiles that you do get are unique in scope, like the axe has an arc, you know, the cross goes across the screen and comes back, but you can capture it, you know, things like that. The dagger goes all the way across the screen and disappears, but it's just really slow. So, you know, Castlevania is not really a projectile-focused game. It's all about your sort of melee attacks with your weapons. So if we hit start, it's going to start us out on a second loop. And what's actually kind of interesting about the second loop in this game is that the second loop is easier than the second loop in the North American version. So there are these Medusa heads you can attack later on in this level. In the North American version, there are these flying skulls that have no rhythm or rhyme to their pattern, and that's what makes the second loop of the North American version so much harder. But the second loop in the Japanese version obviously has more going on. We've already fought a Skull Knight. We've got these constant zombies just constantly appearing. But we're not going to worry about them. We're not going to play through the game any further. I'm not going to attempt the second loop like I did in my original Castlevania III Let's Play from many years ago. But if you guys want to check out that video, you guys can check out my Castlevania Let's Play Marathon playlist here on YouTube. That'll have every Castlevania video I did during the month of October 2013. I think I did like, it was like 11 Castlevania games or something crazy like that I ran through. So feel free to check that out if you want to see those old videos. And stay tuned for the rest of October 2016. I've got a lot of horror-themed Let's Plays lined up for mostly retro game consoles. So stay tuned for that. I hope you guys enjoyed this Let's Play. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I've got a ton of Let's Plays on here and many more to come, as well as other video styles. And yeah, I think you will enjoy the content if you dug this video. Everybody else out there that's already following me here, thanks as usual. Thanks for the continued support. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of October, the October uploads. So, alright guys, take it easy.